tell you guys a quick story and I'll give you a little background. I'm very like, I grew up in I grew up in the Soviet Union and we immigrated, won't go into the backstory, so very lucky my grandparents made it with me. And they're still alive and they're in their late 80s, and when I was starting Happier, I had dinner at their house and I came and said, okay, so I'm leaving. We had sold the company where I was running the consumer division, where to PayPal, and I said, all right, I'm leaving to start a company. And they were like, oh, they kind of, it's like like again, you're leaving that stable job with that big office, like they're used to that routine. They were like, so what are you gonna do? And I said, well, I'm gonna help people be happier. And no joke, my grandpa turns to my grandma right in front of me, Russian Jews we're talking about, okay? And he goes, I thought she was so smart. I don't know, because who wants to be happier? So that was the hardest pitch I'd ever made. Everything was easier from then on. So really excited to be here. Happier, I'll share more if you like. So Happier is a happiness company. We're founded in a tremendous amount of research in neuroscience, social sciences, and even economics about what actually makes us happier. Came out of my personal kind of crazy story of being an immigrant, living in refugee camps, having my first American home being the projects outside of Detroit, my first English words being about, I could tell you anything about cocaine you ever wanted to know, no joke, until Alyssa Milano, who's the boss, as Sam, I've seen Smiles, you've seen that show, pulled me out of that bar because I said, if I can just be like her, I will be happy. So Alyssa Milano was my first real model. Went through a pretty horrible ordeal and decided I wanted to make up for it and make up for my parents, and the way I was going to make up for it, I was going to chase the American dream, which I thought was to be happy, really happy all the time. And I was a very logical 18-year-old at the time. I said, well, obviously you become happy by making a lot of money and achieving a lot of things, obviously. Sounds crazy. I think a lot of us, unfortunately, still feel that way. Went on to achieve a lot of stuff, did a lot of great things, learned a lot, was miserable and exhausted. My father is a scientist. He's actually the law, he's a Palmer physicist. His PhD dissertation, I still can't memorize fully. It's 5 lines. I'm still working on it 20 years later. He's a scientist, so I said, I wonder if there's science of what makes us happier. And that's how Happier came about. For about 4 years, I dug into every piece of research and had what I call, and I'm allowed to say this in an academic institution, but I had my holy crap moment. And the holy crap moment was, I didn't know about it all wrong. I was chasing this nirvana state of happiness. That I was going to wake up one day, everything was going to be great. Organic weeks, things don't work like that. And in fact, there was all this science on absolutely very different things that have been proven by research to do. And I became inspired with this crazy idea that not only could I make it part of my life, and I did pretty amazing things, but I think there's a $1 billion media company to be built here that takes all the science as foundation, but creates experiences for people that help them learn and practice different ways to become more positive in their daily lives, and that's Happier. So we're taking on the $12 billion self-help, $40 billion alternative medicine, and $300 billion plus wellness and corporate wellness market. And we're creating experiences that are mobile, that are social, that are fun, that are interactive, that are in line with how we now consume content and interact, but that have that crazy audacious goal in mind that at the end of the day, they actually make you happy. And I'll share more, but we're here in Boston, we're in venture capital, so happy to talk about it. How happy that made me. Awesome. And Elaine, if you could share with us a little bit about the background of Tributes.
Sure. So I'm about as opposite spectrum as you could get in terms of I'm dealing with people who are probably in their darkest hour, dealing with some of the saddest moments and experience in their life when someone passes away. Our business is really focused at Tributes.com on building the national obituary brand. I come from a long line of technology companies in the Boston area, but started on the internet in the 90s and spent 10 years at switchboard.com transitioning print yellow pages to from print to web. And while I was doing that, our founder, Jeff Taylor, was down the street at monster.com moving jobs from print to web. So the two of us come from many, many years of online classified, and I'll talk a little bit more in the questions about Jeff's vision around tributes, but the goal has really been to take this last lag of classified that still has a meaningful presence in the newspaper and move it to the internet. There really isn't a single roll-up brand when you think about online obituaries, the data is very fragmented amongst all the newspaper sites out on the internet. So first and foremost, our goal has been to build a comprehensive news site, a comprehensive directory that people can rely on when they're trying to find an obit from someone in their circle of friends and family that's passed away. And then layering on top of that tools that families and funeral homes can use to really build rich multimedia online memorials which tell somebody's story in a permanent way that's much more comprehensive and rich than you would get from a traditional print obit. And we've been partnering with the funeral profession, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But we've been around tributes spun out of a different Jeff Taylor startup called Youngs.com. We spun out in 2008. So we just celebrated our 6th year in business, and we had our highest traffic month in January, reaching 5 million consumers. So we've been break even since about 2010, and we're on a journey to raise a new round right now and infuse more capital into the company for our second stage of growth. So
I love that image of you on the Virgin flight, balancing this like enervating load of information and then this very energizing new, I guess 4 years of study, you've been synthesizing this information on happiness, and you open that folder and you say, bing, 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 here's an idea, and run with it. And we all know that there's something so sometimes frightening, but certainly intimidating about sharing a truly original new idea, because the chances that someone's going to get it right away to get to you aren't necessarily that high. So as you became convinced after 4 years of thinking about it, how did you move from that internal awareness that you were really onto something to engaging other people's minds and hearts about it? And what were some things that you realized, given the blessing of insight, were especially smart?
That's a great question, and I'll start with that. It's a really, really great question. I'll give you guys a little intro just so you get context. One of my closest friends, one of my closest friends and our advisor is a very prominent CLO at companies you guys will know. He's done amazing stuff. He's never founded a company. He's been thinking of an idea for 2 years now. He called me the other night and he said, all right, I think I'm ready. I said, what? He said, I'm going to tell me this is someone who's a billion times more accomplished than me, has every connection I didn't have, right, and still has that heritage. And the point is, it's really natural. For me, here's another thing I'd like to say, and this is part of the answer. If you guys think for a second that a day goes by that I don't question, is this the right thing? That's yes, right? And every entrepreneur who's doing something huge has to ask this question. I call it my 4 a.m. wake up, right? I always say it's at 4 a.m. It's actually between 4 and 5 pretty consistently. My poor husband has to deal with this. But it's the once a day of, oh my God, what am I doing? What if this doesn't work? All these people give me money. All these people are working for us. Who wants to be happy? What a stupid idea to me. Nobody wants to be happy. So the thing is, and this is now what I've learned, right? So am I completely convinced we have the next $1 billion lifestyle brand? Yes. Am I at the same time questioning it? How could we do better? Yes. So I don't think, I guess my point of that is, just like I was trying to be happy all the time and that doesn't work, I don't think the point to try to arrive to is where you're just 100% certain that this is the right thing. I don't think that point exists, right? Because we're intelligent-based, we value. For me, what really helped me was I started to, I guess the word is to socialize the idea in different ways, right? To some people, like I have, I was a VC, I've done a bunch of companies, so I have a pretty good network in the VC community. I didn't go and write them all an email saying, hi, I'm starting a happiness company, want to give me money? But as I would kind of hang out with them, I'd start saying like, so I'm thinking about my next thing, and I'd say, what is it? And depending on what it was, I'd either go at it very kind of quantitatively of, people are spending $300 million a year on antidepressants, and we're doubling that every 4 years. They're not really working. 65% of Americans are stressed, right? And I kind of give them the little pitch, and I'd see which piece of it resonated. To some, I would say, I kind of give my personal story. I'd be like, and I'm pretty open book, and so friends of mine knew I was on this path to be happy. It didn't work out, so I kind of go about it that way. And so I started to just socialize it as a concept. So there wasn't a point where I kind of said, okay, now this is an idea, but I started to socialize it. And I think in retrospect, what I wish I had done differently was I actually wish that I had talked to a lot more different types of people earlier on, right? So because I think I had a really good VC network and a pretty good entrepreneur network, those are the ones I went to. I think often if you don't, you actually have to network your way into it, but I think that's a benefit, right? Yes, it's hard work. Yes, networking is work. Yes, you have to, but I think along the way, for example, I wish I had talked to a lot more people who are in content production, video, and TV, because it's definitely a direction we're heading to now. And I wish I had talked to them earlier on. I didn't, right? So that's a big learning. So my advice is it doesn't matter what type of company it is. Consider where it may be and talk to just get that different perspective. The other thing that I really wish I had done earlier on as I started to kind of socialize it to myself is think about the different roles in the company further down the road versus the beginning and start to talk to those people earlier on. So again, I guess it's a net, but my biggest learning is talk to a variety of people, which is kind of the savant, right? Talking to different types of people. I've learned things since that I think would have helped with me. But that was my story.
Thank you. Elaine, you started with this very strong personality in Jeff Taylor. You worked with him closely using L'Oreal. You decided to spin out Tributes. How did you break away from him and expectations people had of you because of him into becoming an innovator who could voice her own wild, outside the herd ideas?
Yeah, it was tough. So, first of all, we had an amazing team at Eons that was so rallied around building the AARP pillar. And, Eons went through a fairly traumatic journey as we changed strategy and pivoted the company away from the original vision and to trying to be the face for humans. And in the middle of all of that, it was fit, the downsizing of the company, and so I basically was down for a job or spin out Tributes, so it was traumatic in a lot of different ways. So, I never fashioned myself as being a leader in the online obituary space. It was weird enough that I told someone at the reception that I was in Yellow Pages as a computer scientist in my earlier career, and then to be in obituaries. Whoa, what is happening to me? This is very strange. But, I believe it was interesting because Jeff's primary research, as I had mentioned, around Eons was on opens. And so that was part of the pitch he'd given me when he was laying out the whole Eons vision. So I really believed, as someone who come from the classified world, that was, this last laggard classified. It made every bit of sense in the world that this was, something that needed a brand that didn't have one. And, I had a lot of that experience, but being in Jeff's shadow was really tough. And so when we launched the company, Jeff was the poster child because it was, Jeff Taylor is starting another brand and going to take another piece of business away from the newspaper. So it took a while for me to kind of rise up to feel like I could be the head of the company. And some of that was because Jeff went off and pursued something different. Gave me some space, and so I think it was a mutual kind of thing. I think it helped me a lot. I think giving me room to become the head of the company, and some of that was again him pursuing other things because didn't have a day job at Tributes. It was trying to balance what was happening with Eons and his own future. So. But it's taken a long time because this is also my first leadership role. I've had a lot of executive roles, but for the first time being the one who has to make all the decisions, there's no other manager to go to and give them the responsibility. So you have to have a lot of internal confidence. Like Nataly said, you have to go by your gut a lot of the times. You don't always have perfect data to make decisions. So it's been interesting, but now after 6 years, I definitely feel like, the leader of the company and the spokesperson in my own right. And, that was a journey, but, I still value a lot of Jeff's influence and being able to use it as a soundboard. He's still chairman of Tributes, so it's interesting. So he's still some semblance of a role, but has never really had a day-to-day. But it's been interesting when you have someone who's a little bit larger than life, and you're trying to forge your own path.
Do you have a go-to person now who is your trusted advisor that you can bring a really crazy idea to?
No. Some of that is, Tributes has gone through a lot of transition. Both of our key investors have been acquired in the last few months. So my board is completely different than some people who didn't invest in the business and inherited the business who know nothing about the business. So I'm sort of rebuilding from that standpoint. Certainly there are colleagues that I've worked with for a long time. But this is right now a journey that's very one of my own as we're trying to move the company into hands that will help us move forward. Really care about the company. That wasn't something that was invested in. So it's been an interesting